Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Nice to meet you. Festival going well? Good. So, informally, we'll open the floor for any questions tonight. Are there any questions? Welcome, Nate, Zoom, and your good wife,
Brandy.
Brandy. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
It's a little culturally powerful overload, perhaps, but nice to have you. We appreciate your visit.
Thank you.
Colorful sounds, scents, and so forth. So, yes, questions?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, these days there's a lot of discussion about a person can choose their own sex, right? Whatever how do they say it? Self-identify, right? You know about that? Anyway, of course, there's a lot in the news about, people trying to change their sex and so on like that. And of course, the physical body is based on the mind, right? It's a manifestation of the mind. So even if one undergoes a sex change operation, they still have the mind of their sex they were originally with. So they can't really become the opposite. Now, but how does it happen? Say, in the changing lives, okay? Male in first life, then female, or vice versa. Because we don't change the mind, right? We leave the physical body at death, but the mind goes with us. But then when we take another species of life, there's a mind the mind is somehow or other intimately connected with that species of life. So if one either changes sex or it changes species, the mind has to be fundamentally different.
So, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how the change of mind occurs. Between...
Well, people do change their minds.
A little more
For sure.
fundamental than that.
Well, of course, the idea that you're referring to is the idea in Vedanta that there is a physical manifestation of matter and there's a psychic dimension of matter. We've talked about this many times. This is an idea that for some time in the scientific community, largely from a materialistic perspective, an idea that's not very well appreciated, and that's unfortunate because when we try to reduce, if you will, the mind to brain and say, posit that there is no such thing as a mind, it's really only brain, it's something that goes on in the brain, it's entirely rooted in physical and so forth. It's a naturalism, you might call it a physicalism, materialism, basically. It's not a scientifically supported position, but science, after all, just collects data and then we interpret it in different ways. So there's different ways to interpret data. Some interpret the data in such a way as to posit that, again, the mind is just the brain. And that is a philosophical, based on interpretation of scientific data, conjecture. It's not something that's demonstratable. It's the kind of missing link to physicalism, to proving through observation that there's nothing really, reality consists only of physical forces, which would mean apples aren't really red, and roses don't really smell sweet as they do, and so forth. All these qualitative experiences, happiness, sadness, scents, sights, sounds, and so forth, somehow they're all really physical. It's just something to even talk about it, it's very difficult. So it's a problem for modern science in the sector of modern science, which is the majority sector, where they're trying to demonstrate this. There's reasons why they try to demonstrate this, of course, because they've gotten many pragmatic results from working with physical matter and trying to understand it, and based on an understanding of it, making an experiment, getting some data, getting a result, putting it in the hands of a technician, and boom, there's medicine for, we don't need the shaman anymore, it's thought, or whatever, there's cell phones and so forth. So this must be the truth of the matter. It's a very narrow perspective. And so, opposed to that, we, as Vedantas, we posit that there's something called psychic matter. And there are people in the scientific community that also have concluded that this idea of reducing the mind to the brain is not happening. We're not able to do it. There is something called the mind. So let's just call it another department of matter. And there you go. Now we have to explore the laws that govern this mental, psychic matter, and so on and so forth. But there's a huge reluctance to do this because it would involve potentially believing in ghosts and all kinds of things. I mean, what kind of things go on in your mind and can happen there, we don't want to talk about it, right? Are very different and multi-dimensional in comparison to what happens in the physical realm. And when you think you've kind of got a handle on reality and this matter, and it works like this, to open the door to another compartment of matter that you don't know anything about, and that those who have talked about it for centuries in ancient traditions and so forth have posited all kinds of, whatever goes on in your mind goes on. There's something called mind stuff, if you will. It's pretty different, although matter different than physical matter. It's kind of we would call it quasi-subjective. Quasi-subjective because we feel, according to Vedanta, that there's something entirely different from matter, both its psychic and physical dimensions, and that's called consciousness. And when we say consciousness, we don't mean just awareness of something. Awareness of something is an aspect of consciousness, just like illumination of things that are dark is an aspect of light. The light is luminous in and of itself, and it illuminates other objects. We often think of consciousness as that which illuminates other objects. That's an aspect of consciousness from the point of view of our school of Vedanta. But beyond that, consciousness is if you will, luminosity itself. It's a knowing something. It's not like matter, which is inert, unknowing. It's knowing. And unlike matter, which is constantly undergoing transformation, it doesn't undergo transformation like birth, death. Being ontologically different from both psychic and physical matter, it is not under the jurisdiction of time and space. So it has no beginning. It has no end. It's eternal. Eternal. Now think about that word. It's eternal. It has no beginning. It says to kind of let that go around in your ear, around inside your head a little bit, and then hopefully go down into your heart. That sounds good. Eternal, has no beginning, has no end. The Hindu perspective on time is cyclical. Goes round and round. There's something to that in modern Western society. Well, not so much modern, but with the scientific revolution and Christianity, really, the ancient world that thought of time as cyclical was thought of as linear. Linear time is a huge problem for the mind because you can't answer the question, which came first, the seed or the tree? You have to keep going back. There's a seed, there's a tree, there's a seed, there's a tree, there's a seed, there's a tree. Of course, if you say linear time began at a certain time, well, But in cyclical time or cyclical time, then you know the question, which came first, the tree or the seed? You can answer neither one. You understand? Either one. The circle line is random. The circle has purpose and completes it and so forth. So there's a very soothing side to this cyclical idea of time that the ancients lived within. And it's an idea of time that is also coming again to the fore in modern science. There are a number of people positing the idea that worlds, for example, universes expand and contract in endless cycles with no beginning, and so on and so forth. This is what the Hindus have said for ages. So the Hindus have talked, among others as well, mystics in different traditions, about a psychic realm, right, of matter, and beyond it as well, something. And what they posit can go on in the psychic realm is something that makes people who feel that we've got control of things. There's electromagnetism, there's gravity, there's strong, weak nuclear forces, we got to figure it out. Uncomfortable. Hold things up for grabs again. There's psychic matter, but how does it work? And are we going to turn to these people who posit ghosts and all types of beings and goddesses, gods, and so forth? So they're peaceful people. They tend to be nice people. You might want to do that. But beyond that, anyway, of course, the idea is that there's consciousness, as I'm saying, it has no beginning, it has no end. It's sat. It's not constricted by time, by space. It's chit. So it's cognizant. It's not inert like matter. And when it touches matter, it touches the subtle matter. And then the subtle matter takes on a quasi-subjective nature. Unfortunately, it's all the thoughts and feelings are in relation to physical matter, which makes them a little dead, if you will. So the trick is, in Vedanta and yoga, is to take that psychic dimension, the whole realm of the mind, and turn it towards the spiritual. Udaratmanam, atmanam bhavacharya, atmavriparatmanam, atmavripurupananaha. Krishna says in Gita, the mind is the friend of the yogi and the enemy as well. You can train the self, can train the mind to with spiritually fortified intelligence to turn our thoughts away from things. You said the best things in life are not things. It's you. You're not a thing. And there's a way of thinking about that. Thinking about something that's not a thing. And it ends thinking. And it results in knowing that you could not arrive at by thinking. That's a very fascinating idea, because we think we know by thinking. We can know theoretically enough to turn our mind away from things and in the direction of the self through focusing the mind on the trans-rational, not irrational, but trans-rational practices, kind of inverse practices, going within the less is more idea, the Zen term. And then, as a result of that practice, not thinking about the practice, but the thinking that compels us to do the practice, as a result of the practice, we get experience of this. This is the beginning experience. People want to know what's eternal. I mean, what's spiritual. I can tell you, the first experience of what is spiritual is when you experience I'm eternal. I don't know how you can describe that, but you have to experience it. By deep spiritual practice, you can experience I'm eternal. There's a kind of knowing. It's not a knowing of everything, but it is. It's a knowing that makes everything not worth knowing. It's a knowing about the nature of the self, a kind of a satisfying knowing that you can sense. Because why we move? Because we think if we don't, we may not exist. Someone will eat us. Just as we are eating someone else. Such is the world. So, hunters and hunted. To rest from that, sit, know that I be, that I am. And that can never change. And cognizant and with the capacity to love. Satchit, nice ideas. So, we were asked, and just to give that background, we were asked about the idea of the mind, and reincarnation is brought up in the context of the question. Theory of reincarnation includes the idea that it's Atma, this unit of consciousness that we are, the I am that we are, when we are, I am not this or that, as I often say, but I am, that's for sure. This or that changes. I might think I'm this, I might think I'm that, I might think I'm this again, I might think I'm that again. That all changes, but the I am doesn't change. That should be focused on. So, that I, that capital letter, I guess it's always capitalized in English, that capital letter I, let's compare it to the small me. I is bigger than me, and that's what we're talking about it. Me means me and mine, you can say here, as I'm speaking about. I means this higher self, right? This higher self, it is, as I said, that it is that higher self that touches the psychic matter that then makes the world go around, which is what feelings do. You can say the world is moving on the basis of gravity and electromagnetic force, but it's really running on feelings of ourselves. And those forces are there too, but they're not the only forces in life. One may wonder, as an aside, okay, fine, Swami, consciousness, this ethereal being, knowing and loving self, how does it touch the mind? If we say, okay, mind is also matter, so, okay, we've done away with the mind-brain problem because they're both different types of matter, so somehow they connect. But now I come with something that's not matter, how does it touch the mind and make the whole thing go? So there's a problem with the very thinking in that question, because you're thinking, like people did prior to Newton's discovery of gravity, that things move only by physical contact. If one object touches another, then there'll be motion. And he wondered, well, what touched that apple that fell from the tree? So he posited a mystical force called gravity. This was at a time when Western civilization was coming out of the occult world, all kinds of forces and so forth, and dismissing all types of superstitions and whatnot. When Newton posited gravity, his contemporaries started to think he's going back to the occult. What's wrong with this guy? Gravity, though, however, by math, he could demonstrate the gravity, and so it was just kind of subsumed and incorporated in, and there's gravity. Let's not talk about it too much. Recently, they had some discoveries with regard to gravity, which were interesting. At any rate, mystical force, gravity. So in other words, things move, objects move, without necessarily having physical contact. So, of course, gravity is physical force, so physicalism starts to include, materialism starts to include material forces, and it becomes more subtle what matter is, and so on. It becomes more mystical as you look at it, and it's hard to avoid. At any rate, the question, how is it that consciousness touches matter, it betrays an understandably lack of understanding of what consciousness is, and what its powers and abilities are, and so on and so forth. And we live with that. But the question is, it includes part of the question includes this idea of reincarnation. What happens in reincarnation, the theory is that this self, this Atma, is asleep to itself. Again, it's touched the physical matter, and this is turned on, or psychic matter, and that's generated the physical matter, and the world's going around. And it's something like when someone turns on, say, the television. Now, what is the television without the viewer? It's nothing, right? You have to have someone turn the thing on. But the problem often is, unfortunately, that people turn the television on, and then the television turns them on. It takes over their life. It happens. Someone has to pull you away from the television, or you have to pull your kids away from the virtual reality of the computer game world. There's a life out here, pinch them, see if you can feel that. There's a real world out here. So, similarly, this spark of consciousness that we are, although it has the power to turn on matter, we're sustaining the world. Still, we're small, and we have the capacity, like spark of a fire, it has the capacity to be obscured by the smoke. So the show of matter obscures the light of the spark, and it's unaware of itself. Just like if you're plugged into virtual reality, you don't know it. You think you're wherever in a paradise, and you're sitting on your couch, and it's snowing outside. So something like that. So when the death of the physical body comes, this psychic dimension of matter is more subtle. It's less subject, we could say, to transformation than the physical matter. The more we go on a hierarchy from sense objects to the senses, to the mind, the intelligence, this matter is becoming more and more subtle. The more subtle it becomes, the more it becomes quasi-like consciousness, which is not subject to transformation. So this subtle body remains, if you will, psychic body, intact, and this is the vehicle through which, at reincarnation, someone starts again in another body. Who will I be? No, it's not like that. You're not going to become somebody else, but physical matter is constantly in flux. What's making it in flux is our desires. And so if you remain with material desires, then physical forms will form around you and will transform, and ashes to ashes, whatever, dust to dust. Another form will come, and so on and so forth. So this is what's going on. I mean, it's happening all the time in the sense that all of the cells of our body are changing all the time. And so the physical matter is constantly in flux. So death is just another change. But we are a self that's identified with the particular transformation of the body, and that's not going to remain. So death is a problem because we become attached to it. We think it's ourselves. So when you have these out-of-body experiences, or what are they called?
Near-death experience.
Near-death experience. Near-death experiences are often reported as, well, the brain stops, but this person was actually a witness of things that were going on in the room. So the doctor was saying, oh, he's dead, and everybody's weeping, and this self is observing the whole thing. So what is this self that's observing? It's not the Atma itself, but it's the psychic body. Therefore, it still thinks of itself, as its small me self. These are my friends, my family, this is my body, and so forth. The reports that come, you can understand, as you're saying, the mental, psychic dimension where this sense of identity arises, false sense of identity, is preserved in the demise of the physical body. So this reporting goes on, and of course it's evidence from our perspective of this psychic dimension matter. And so in that psychic mental body, that self that arises there out of identification of consciousness with subtle matter, that self takes another body. Now, what body it takes is determined by the karma, right? And it could be quite a different body. And so there's some kind of adjustment and subtle realm so that you can fit into that body and proceed. So I guess the question to get to it here is that well, the body you could change, but the mind remains the same, and the body kind of comes out of the mind. So if you don't change the mind, how can really, the example being asked about, change your sex? You can change your physical sex, but you've got the same mind. But I don't think that that's so accurate a way to look at it. Again, I mean, it's in common English parlance. We know that we do change our minds, and there's this correlation, not causation, but there is a correlation between mind and brain. When we look at the correlates between mind and brain, like if I touch here in the brain, this goes on in the mind. Some people conclude, therefore, brain is mind, mind is brain. See, mind is just the brain. But the saying is, of course, that causation and correlation are two different things. It could work the other way around. Because you see, therefore, the brain is the mind. As much as you could say, see, the mind is the brain. It's a given in Vedanta that there's going to be a correlation between the neural firings in the brain and the mind. That's a given. It's like a hand on a glove on a hand, something like that. So if you move the fingers, and the glove moves, something. But again, correlation and causation are two different things. So the brain is not mind. Mind is not brain. Nonetheless, there's this correlation between the two, so that there's ways in which you can change the physical that will result in a change of mind. And there's ways in which you can change your mind and change the physical also. The old simple English saying, mind over matter, right? And really, we in effect, we do that. So that's one thing in relation to your question. Another thing is that it would be part of the karma of the self to take birth with such desires. Let's say take birth in male body with female desires, or I would imagine that the body in such cases of, say, a male body nonetheless has some hormones in it. There's some that are not entirely, that are out of balance compared to the typical, if there's such a thing, male. And so it's a complex issue, and it in one sense was answered by my Guru Maharaj many years ago, whose birthday we're celebrating today, when there's a lady in San Francisco who many years ago got involved in our tradition to some extent and had a sex change. This was like, I think, like 30 years ago. So it's a long time. It's become.
When Prabhupada was with us.
Yeah. It was, so it was even before, like, it was in the 70s. And it wasn't as popular of an idea then. At any rate, she wrote to Prabhupada, you probably know the answer. Prabhupada said, pick one and stick with it. Pick one. You want to be a man, pick one and stick with it. So he was not fond of all of these.
That person, they were changing their mind.
Yeah.
They were going back and forth, and Prabhupada said, she was asking Prabhupada, what should I do? And he just said, pick one. Stay with it.
So he picked she, and I know her. She used to visit me years ago in San Francisco. So So he was, characteristically, he thought Americans always want to change everything. Change the room. I'm doing it now, changing my interior up there in the cabin. So he was predisposed towards that. He was real concerned they would change the philosophy in his absence and so forth and so on. So he wanted to write it all down. And still they try to change it, right? Some people try to change the books even now. So. But anyway, this was his answer. So it would seem from his answer that he accepted the idea that it's possible. I mean, obviously what happens when the sex changes, that the physical, I guess, get certain hormones and so forth. And again, this has the power to, on some level, to change the mind. There's a correlation between the brain and mind. I mean, you can press someplace in the brain and your mind will stop, functioning, right? Or it'll do something else, right? And that correlation is so extraordinary that, again, people jump to the conclusion that, see, that there is no thing as a mind, it's really all in the brain. But what's the problem is, that idea is, there's something else that's going on, so-called in the brain, which is this sense of I am. And then the qualitative experiences of happiness, sadness, red, blue, and so forth. And they can't find that. You can't find the neuron or whatever that is that's producing this I am and all these qualitative experiences that don't fit in a world that's supposed to be only physical. So, you know what I'm talking about this at length at other times. It's because of the idea. So at any rate, I think that because of the correlation, it's quite possible to change physically, which includes the brain, as part of the physical apparatus, and as a result, change the mind. And conversely, as I say, it's quite possible to change the physical by the mind. And that's a different art, if you will. You can't just inject some hormones that one, but you have to strengthen the mind, and there are practices by which you kind of harness the power of the mind, if you will. It's kind of going in a lot of different directions often. So I think it is possible to change the mind to some extent. We do it all the time, but I think I agree with the idea. People want to stick with it, which is pretty much what most people do. But the fact that there's gender identity questions and so forth, materially speaking, that arise is I don't know. It seems like more of a modern phenomenon, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's been around forever and it's just recognized more now. And after all, I mean, everybody struggles with who I am sexually at some point in their life. It happens pretty naturally for everybody, I guess, in one sense, but not everybody fits into the normal picture. The question is, what's normal? Are there within the normal exceptions? Like my guru, he said once, well, that in the animal society, there's no homosexuality, so it seems like it's abnormal. Of course, now we know that there is homosexuality within the animal society. So this is, again, I mean, knowing everything doesn't mean knowing everything. Knowing everything means knowing what I am, and that everything may not need to be known, and I might get some information and go, oh, based on that information, repeat it and so forth. But I had experience with my Guru Maharaj making a point, and then based on information that he had heard, and then being informed by me and others at the time that actually that wasn't accurate. And they said, oh, okay, well then we changed. He's a reasonable person. But we operate, so to speak, at times, by the ease of taking information from others, rather than we can't go sort it all out ourselves. But if we find out that the information was faulty, then we adjust our position naturally. Any reasonable person would do that. And as I said the other night, knowledge about the world, material world, it's unlimited. What speak? It's always changing. Now you can say there's certain laws that never change, but I mean, you don't know that. You can prove that 2 and 2 is not 4, and you can prove that 2 and 2 is 4. So what about that? Just to give an example. So point being that some kids, let's take it, there's 11 kids on the football team, and they don't like girls. Because girls can't play football. So, so that whatever, they're thinking like that. So that they play soccer, but not football. So, just give an example. So then suddenly, next year on the team, there's cheerleaders on the sideline, and that guy that was just focused on throwing the ball is he's got another focus, and suddenly girls are more important than football, and the whole team starts to swing in that direction. But there's one guy on the team that doesn't feel that way. They're all just reaching puberty. This is what happens. They're just reaching puberty. And one guy doesn't feel it. Was he told not to feel that way? Was he programmed not to feel that way? If you can say that his feeling was, hey, why don't we just play ball and buddy up, after the game. and it feels to him exactly like the guys are feeling towards the girls. No different whatsoever. How powerful is that feeling? The feeling is so powerful that, I think I'm going to skip the practice and the game too, because she wants me to do this. and it's such a powerful, and we all have experienced the power of this. So just one guy on the team, he just feels differently about it. Now you can say, if we really look deeply at it, it's got to be his choice. Okay, it's his choice unconsciously. Because of how he was brought up and so forth. What the difference does it make then? It's an unconscious choice. Then you can't be blamed for a choice, or you can't be. So is it a choice, or is it genetic? Let's say it's karma. How do we deal with karma? How do we deal with what is the? For example, let's take the sexual urge. It's such a prominent thing in society, right? In human life, in all species of life, and everybody in human society agrees that it needs to be regulated at some level. You don't just go jump on a guy and fall. You get arrested for that. So on some level, everybody agrees it needs to be harnessed, regulated, or something in some. So everybody draws the line differently based on their perspective, what their ideal in life is, and so forth. So in yoga, there's the virtues of abstinence and so forth are often presented and so forth. You have to have the mindset of a yogi, what you want, and so forth, to identify with that, obviously. And in the power, if you will, of bhakti yoga, whereas Ashtanga yoga says to practice you have to be celibate. It's a yama or a niyama of, what is it? It's a yama of Ashtanga yoga. In the Gyan Marg or Gyan yoga, it's also a limb of that type of yoga, brahmacharya, celibacy. It's not a limb of bhakti. That is the power of bhakti, that one can remain in a relationship that includes intimacy and transcend it at the same time with the power of bhakti. It takes some time and so forth. It takes the power of bhakti. Amongst the different types of yoga, it's the one type that doesn't include as one of the limbs of its body, the body of the practice, celibacy. Now some bhakti yogis are celibates, they choose that course, and they're psychologically suited for that, they feel comfortable with that, and so on and so forth. Others choose to have a significant partner and proceed along the path in that way, and both are noble, and we find great saints coming from both sides of the of the divide. I mean, speaking as a celibate, there are some advantages, I would say, but not if you're not psychologically suited for it, then you're going to be like a square inside of a round hole there, and not feel very comfortable and not be able to proceed along the lines of your practice.
That's an issue.
Cool.
On your shoulder.
Your left shoulder.
So there's a way in which the teacher, and it may be uniform or maybe individual to individual with regard to the students, suggests or even mandates that we should harness it in this way. We should harness it in that way. It should be inside of a committed marital relationship. That's a beautiful thing. And those commitments are powerful, and they give more meaning to the intimacy. And harness it in a way that's reasonable. And some will take it further for the sake of only for progeny. My Guru said it both ways. You should harness it only for getting children, or only within a committed marital relationship. So what do you do with the guy on the team, who is starts to feel different? It's his fault, or what? What are you supposed to tell somebody like that? In this case, with homosexual tendency and so forth. That how can you expect such a person to, let's say, as some people might mandate, abstain? Just think about it. If you're heterosexual, from your heterosexual perspective, how are we going to tell? Don't look at the cheerleaders. I mean, is that realistic? If you're supposed to tell every other 10 guys on the team, no cheerleaders for the rest of your life. I just started to feel like, hey, that'd be cool. Nope, you're going to be celibate your whole life. I mean, is that realistic? No, it's not. Is it a requirement within bhakti to be celibate? No, it's not. Is there an idea within bhakti that the senses should be curbed and controlled and so forth? Certainly, that's yoga. And then the art of how to do that is determined by regulating in such a way that you get a positive result. Like my Guru said, he wrote in his commentary on a summary of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that one should accept a vow with regard to practice that one can follow. Because if we accept the vow that we cannot follow, then we're in worse shape than if we didn't do that before, when we didn't have a vow and the practice, arguably. And so he said, in our society, we've determined that, as he did, that he wanted his disciples to chant on his beads 2 hours a day, and so forth, and so on. Fix that up. First, he had said to them, they should chant for 8 hours a day. He said, we don't think we can do that. He said, okay, we'll make it 4. And they said, I'm not sure we can do that too. And they kind of negotiated with him, really. And he said, well, 2, okay. And that pretty much stopped, and then he tried to push on that and have us make that commitment. So now in time, if you will, after, for example, his passing, and they have a successor or successors and so forth, they have to have liberty, the same liberty that the previous Acharya or Guru did, to make time and place determinations about how to present the principle. And so, the times are very different now than they were in 1977. I mean, the time difference between 1977, when he departed from the world, and 2016 is like the time difference between 1900 and 2000, or 1800 and 2000, because, as you know, with technology and so forth, the world is speeding up and changing at a much rapid pace. And we cited an example of a person who felt the need for a sex change in 1977. Now it's, it's like becoming a mainstream, possibility and so forth, and so on. So you have to, I think, the position of the teacher, the guru, is to look at the principle and see how to adjust and compassionately deal with the reality of persons in whom you have been able to awaken faith in bhakti, in the tradition, and so forth, and see how to get them involved in a way that's progressive. And so if someone, for example, is, you've created interest and they're liking the association, identifying with the philosophy, and then I always ask the students about their material life, because I know that their material life is going to determine something about their ability to pursue their spiritual life. So if they don't have a job, they don't have a boyfriend, and they're looking for a girlfriend or whatever, then I know, okay, things could change in your life, dramatically. You could get a job and move to Siberia and marry a Russian girl and fall in love with her, and she might not be at all interested in spiritual life, and it might be a problem in your spiritual life, might go out the window and so forth. So you want to know if there's material situation, how much imbalance it is, and so forth. You might want to give the mantra at a time when there's still, there's a lot of flux and so forth, and so on. So these kind of determinations, each teacher has to be able to make. That's the whole hallmark of being a teacher. You have to know what the subject is, and then how to create teachable moments, and present it and adjust, and be able to digest whatever adjustments with regard to details that you choose to make in order to deliver the principle. Because if the student then that you vouch for, so to speak, ends up doing something else, that's not very good. That's not good for you. You have to have the power to digest that. The power of your own bhakti, that you can digest that. So there's some risk involved there to do that. My roomers used to say, it's my only fault. I've initiated too many unqualified people who've shown themselves to be unqualified. I have to digest that. So he could digest that. But somehow I'd be consumed by that also, if possible. So, dynamic. So what do you do with the guy, or the gal says, I'm really interested in teaching. I ask, okay, so what's your situation? Are you in a relationship? Well, I kind of like, are you married? Have a girlfriend? Do you have a job? I'm like uncomfortable in my body. I'm like, oh, it's a male, I feel like. So, what province is it on? I would say, pick one and stick with it, and let's go from there. And bhakti has the power to override all these anomalies and whatnot. I mean, you look at, there's an example in the lower text and so forth of Narada doing the traveling spaceman, and he met a hunter, and the hunter was killing animals, and he was killing them halfway, and he liked watching them struggle. I mean, it's plural, and so Narada was pretty repulsed by it. But the hunter nevertheless recognized that Narada was a special person, and so inquired from him and liked him and liked his association, what he was teaching, and wanted to practice. And Narada said, well, here's the thing. It's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the mantra parameters that I want to you to work within to evoke the mantra effectively is that I want you to kill them all the way. He says, because he said, I'm a hunter, what can I do? He first said, you should stop killing. That's not good. But I'm a hunter. That's what I am. My father was a hunter. His father's father was a hunter. In the olden times, of course, people didn't change that much, and so forth. So anyway, he was a hunter. He said, well, look, here's what I want. Kill him completely, okay? And chant the name. So he gave a regulative principle. Kill him completely and chant. Sounds pretty. So then he went away and he came back, and then when he returned after some time, hunters saw him and bowed down to him, but he stopped from bowing all the way because there were some ants on the ground, and he was afraid that he would maybe kill an ant in the context of bending down. In other words, by the power of the name and the faith in the transmission of that from the teacher, he stopped killing, which was inconceivable to him previously because I'm a hunter. You got another identity from the power of the name. So my Guru Maharaj said in the beginning in New York in 1966 when he came from India, he said, I gave up the name as an experiment to see what would happen with people. He used those words, to see what would happen. But to these, he was like in a foreign land. He came from India, he was like 70 years old. And in those days, we didn't have the internet, so what's going on in America, what it's like, you just get these rumors and stories. And you're from India, third world country, he came here. When he came to New York, he wrote back to some of his associates and said, this place is really different. He said, everybody has a car, and everybody drives it. In other words, in India at that time, only rich people had a car, and they had a driver who would be everybody's got a car, and everybody drives their own car. Weird. And at night, there are so many lights that, the place is like day. I mean, you can compare it. It's like never dark. Where am I? It's just like, what his experience was. And it was cold in the winters in New York. A person from India. In Vrindavan, where he come from, it borders the Rajasthani desert. If you look in the Guinness Book of Records, you'll find the hottest temperatures in the world right there, like 130 degrees sometimes in summer. But hot. I've been there. Maybe some of you had some hot time. As soon as you get out of the cold shower, you're perspiring again. And so we come to New York winters, and he had no place to stay. He had been invited by a couple in Philadelphia. And when he went there, he felt confined because he wanted to reach out to people. So he just went to the streets. And what was his vehicle? The chanting of his mantra. Sat down in the park, under a tree, chanted, and people came around and said, what's that about? What's going on? And some younger people who were kind of living on the streets too in those days. It was in the village, in New York, in this village area. Well, I was anyway, they began to take it up, rented the place for him, and so forth. And here we are today. So he was a very flexible person. He was thinking how to do it. He did come up with a certain formula that seemed to work, so he stuck with that. It's our business as his successors to think, well, is the same formula working now? Is it the formula? Is it those details for all kinds of circumstances? Or are those details? Indeed they are. As he himself said, well, I wanted them to chant 8 rounds, 8 hours a day, and then for 4 minutes. So you should pick a vow that you can follow. This is the principle over details. It's important. So again, with regard to the sex change, just pick one, stick with it. Let's not make more out of it than we need to. Everybody's got the urge, makes the world go round. We're all here because of it. So, and it's a positive side of that, you've got bodies and minds, so you can practice, transcend them. We didn't have them, we couldn't transcend them, so this was my long answer, unfortunately. What's the time?
7:32.
Okay, so, very nice to sit with you all, and, I'm a bit tired, I think some of you may be as well. It's the particular festival with midnight, part of it, it's fasting all day and so forth, it's interesting, it's a little taxing, but tomorrow morning, we have, as typically we do, morning program at 5 in the morning, some chanting, reading, and then I'm going to make myself available to those of you who want to have a word with me before going elsewhere, maybe in case back to your homes, and those of you who stay here with me, well, got lots to do, you know.
Tomorrow's Ekadasi.
Tomorrow is Ekadasi, it's the
Oh.
11th day of the waning moon. Waning moon, there you go. Okay, you get the start of your Ekadasi here. So, Ekadasi, we don't eat any grains. That's another topic. Just leave with that, the announcements. Ekadasi, Reincarnation, Janmāṣṭamī, Swami Tripurari, Swami Tripurari,
Jai.
Audārya